Hey everyone, I'm creating a new playlist on A2A and MCP servers. And to do so, I've created this multi-agent architecture, which uses A2A MCP client, A2A MCP registry, and multiple agents and MCP servers. Along with that, it has a host agent, which main job is to decide the right agent and MCP tool to be called for a particular query. And there's a front end. So quick background of this architecture. And in upcoming video, we'll be building each of the components of this architecture. Like we'll be building MCP client, which can talk to the MCP servers. We'll have a A2A registry. We'll build the A2A registry. We'll have the A2A client, and then we'll build few MCP servers, both local and streamable, remote. We'll also build some agents for different tasks, and then we'll connect to some of the data systems like file system or databases to have better understanding of each of the components of this architecture. So quick background of this architecture. We have the front end. Front end makes a query to host agent, which is orchestrator, using A2A protocol. This host agent is also A2A agent itself. So host agent main job is to does do the query intent detection. It's the central intelligence layer of my multi-agent system. Because we have multiple agents, I need to decide for each query that which agent should be called. So that job is done by the orchestrator. Based on the query intent, it chooses the right agent. Also, it chooses the right MCP tools to be called to fetch the data for this particular query. So all these things happens on the host orchestrator, which is here. And then we have MCP client. So since it's a multi-agent system and also we have different data sources, we have multiple MCP servers as well. So for each of the query, there is a very important step that has to be done, which is tool discovery. Tool discovery means these MCP servers provide a lot of tools for to fetch different kind of data, but for a particular query you don't know that which tool should be executed. So MCP client job is to decide what are the right tools to be called for this particular query. So MCP client does the tool discovery. MCP client lists all the servers which are present. It can fetch the prompts from the MCP servers. Also, it can read resources from the MCP servers. And when asked by the host agent, it will find the list of tools should be executed for a particular query, and also it will give the sequence of execution of those tools, means parallel or sequential. So it will provide this information to the host orchestrator. Then comes the A2A client. So A2A client main job is to call a agent and choose a agent from the A2A registry. So it's a multi-agent system where you have different agents, but how do we decide that which agent should be called for a particular query? So for that, we have a storage of information of all these agents, which is called A2A registry. A2A registry is kind of phone book for all these agents, where for all each of the agent, the A2A registry has a A2A card, and that A2A card has all the capabilities mentioned of that agent. Along with that, it has agent URL. So if A2A client has to know that what are the agents available and what are their capabilities, it can simply search the A2A registry and it can fetch all the A2A cards. Now A2A client will read all the cards, and based on the query which is coming from top, it can decide that which agent is perfect to call for that query. It will give that agent information to host orchestrator again. So you can say that tool discovery is happening in MCP client and agent discovery is happening in A2A client using A2A registry. So these are the three components which are main kind of orchestrator components for a multi-agent system. Also in the MCP client, all the MCP servers information is stored in a config file called MCP config. So whenever you register a new server, it will get registered in the config file. So on the third layer, we have the actual MCP servers and agents. So these MCP servers, there is one MCP server for each of the data sources. If you have to pull from, let's say, Jira, or you need to pull from, let's say, Splunk, or any other enterprise tool, even these days, even Gmail has MCP server, has MCP server. So all these enterprises have their MCP server. Unlike calling it through HTTP call, in the multi-agent system, we call it using MCP tool call, because MCP protocol is standard and understood well by the LLMs. So LLMs use this MCP, LLMs fetch the data over this protocol only, and for that we have the MCP servers. And then we have A2 agents. So agents job is to use the data which is being fetched by MCP servers and execute a particular workflow for which it is meant. So let's say one agent, you have to do only the research of current market trends. So that agent will basically fetch all the research data using MCP server tools, and using that data, it will use the LLM to execute a particular workflow which is designed to do the research work. The same way you have for, let's say, some other agent for coding, some other agent for data analytics. So all this complex task is performed by one agent. I mean, each of the complex tasks is being performed by one agent, and together they are performing a very complex business workflow. So that's why you have multiple agents and not a single agent. And all these agents information is stored in A2A registry in the form of A2A cards, which is used by A2A client and the host orchestrator. So that's how the multi-agent system works. And this was kind of intro video uh, for just to give you a quick walkthrough of all the components that we are going to build in upcoming videos, uh, and what we are going to cover in this playlist. Next, in upcoming videos, I'll build a MCP client from scratch using LangChain maybe, and we'll also give quick walkthrough of what are MCP servers, why they were built when we already had, function calling and tool calling earlier. So why there was a need to have a standard protocol for LLMs. So I'll talk about that point, that aspect as well. Then we'll also talk about the A2A protocol. A2A protocol, there are different things in it. So there will be uh, multiple videos coming in this series, and we'll deep dive into MCP protocol, different parts like prompts, tools, resources, how the client server architecture works. All these things we'll cover in the upcoming videos. Yeah, so with that, let's complete this one, and thank you.